Warning. This podcast is about to open the sealed section of spirituality.
Hey you, yeah you, we see you, you divine human being.
And we are calling you to come home.
We are ready to talk about the real shit. We're going to get real about life as a divine human being.
The good, the not so great, spirituality and taboo. Divinely Human is the podcast that's all about what it means to be human in a spiritual context.
We know it's not just about being spiritual, it's about being human too.
And that means changing poopy nappies and channeling angels.
Sometimes even at the same time. It's time for us to stop making other people's noise our own soundtrack of life.
Let's make some waves together so that we can all ride them together and create deep resonance, a sense of home in this crazy world.
Pour yourself a coffee
Or a glass of wine if that's your potion.
and sit down with your new favorite spiritual sisters
As we go on a journey together into what it means to be
a divine human being.
on this spiritual journey. Hello and welcome to the Divinely Human podcast. I'm your co-host Aleisha,
And I'm Tanita.
and we are looking forward, as always, sitting down, about to just let whatever wants to come through unravel out. So, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. I like what you did there at the beginning. You changed it up from "we're so excited" to "we're looking forward to today."
Creative.
Oh gosh, no, I'm keen to see what wants to come through. I was like chatting with you just before about, things that have been coming through on the weekends that I'd love to just explore in a bit more depth. I mean, I work in financial planning in my corporate job, and I was talking to my financial planner who works in the business. He's one of the main bosses there. And I was asking him about, do you get paid? Like, how do you price your services as a really experienced financial planner in this industry who's been in here for more than 30 years, serviced hundreds and hundreds of clients? Can you be charging more for your services? Is there something that happens where you raise your prices frequently? And he's like, no, because, and what he said was really interesting. He's like, no, but I find that the younger advisors that come into the business actually charge more for their services. And I was like, why is that? That's so frustrating to me to hear. And I was like, why? That makes no sense. And he said, well, because the generation that he looks after, they are more wired to DIY everything because something is ingrained within them that says, I need to work, I need to provide, and I need to save money. And lifestyle is something that just happens if it happens. It's not one of a main priority. And then we were saying with the younger generation, it's completely flipped. Now there's more of an emphasis on our lifestyle, the way we live, and they are more willing to just pay for things to get done. And it's so funny because he was saying he gets so frustrated seeing people who don't mow their own lawns or clean their own houses. And he's like, you could be saving so much money. And I was like, my partner literally pays for all of those things. Like, he would never do that. And it was just really interesting because I started to think, well, this is where that don't mix business and pleasure comes into play, and how we can relate this to our own businesses as soulful entrepreneurs is this fact that there is a still existing societal belief that you have to work hard in order to have money, and that you can't mix business and pleasure and lifestyle and business together. So I don't know. I'd love to hear like what comes up for you when I share that, because a lot came up for me.
What is coming up for me immediately is like in my head right now, I'm just seeing this reel of all the things that I pay for to be done for my own convenience that takes like the stress out of like going out and doing it myself. Like only this morning, I like had my groceries delivered to my house.
Yep.
So many little things. And even, I guess families that, aren't, extremely well off and stuff like that. Like, I still speak to people who do also struggle with money and financially, but also still pay for those things to be done because they place more value on the convenience than having to go out and do that. But also time. I think time is such a big thing this day and age. Whereas I don't know. I feel like in my parents' generation and my grandparents' generation, it was always like, doesn't matter about time. Like, as long as you go and get it done yourself, then like you've done a hard day's work and like that's something to be proud of.
Yeah.
But now it makes me really think about what we place recognition of as well. Really interesting. I listened to an interview. I think it was on like Triple J a few weeks ago, but they were interviewing like these like newer generation, I guess how I say that. they're actually, I always forget how young you are.
23. Yes.
Your age. But then I think that I'm like a bloody geriatric, like a senior citizen.
I mean, you've lived many lives. It could possibly feel that way.
I always just think that we're both like 30.
Yeah, no. I feel 80 inside. Trust me. I'm like bed by 11, like on a night out.
Oh, goodness. So wait, what's your generation?
Oh my God, I have no idea. Honestly, it gets so confused.
Is it Gen Z? I don't know. Anyway,
possibly.
I'm pretty sure they were interviewing like 18 to 25-year-olds. And apparently there's this new thing called quiet quitting. Have you heard of that?
No.
So it's where you show up to your job and you do the bare minimum, just enough to get paid. And then like, that's it. Because this newer generation is like, well, I'm showing up to this job. Like, I value my outside life more than my job. So I'm just going to like make sure that I do just enough to scrape by and get paid. Like, I just turn up and do my job. Don't put anything more into it. And then go home at the end of the day and then like place more energy into your outside world. And I found that really interesting.
Yes.
I feel like every job that I've had where I've worked for somebody else, I've always tried to do more.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting, but I think it goes hand in hand with kind of like what we're speaking about in a way, because it's like people are valuing the convenience of just like, well, they don't have to do that extra work. So they'll just get paid and go home and like place more value in their outside world of like pleasure.
Yes. It's so interesting that you say that, because I feel like if we were talking about what I brought up around that, like mixing pleasure and business, I actually find that really hard. And I feel like I'm actually am on the opposite end of that spectrum, where when I've worked in environments that with people that are a similar age to me, I totally notice that mindset you were just talking about of, I'm here, isn't that enough? Like, that's what they're paying me to do. And whereas I've always been brought up with the belief that you do have to put in more effort, do what's not just required, but actually provide more. And I actually get a lot of satisfaction out of that too. So it's something that, like, if I don't feel like I've put in a good amount of effort into that day, I actually leave feeling really unsatisfied. And that's not a nice feeling for me.
Yeah.
But I totally see that. I totally see that mindset of like, well, I'm just doing what's asked of me and like not necessarily like thinking outside of the box. Fuck, it used to drive me crazy. Like,
yeah.
But it's really interesting because I do think that they are interwoven. And I think that for me, this whole conversation is just an invitation around like, well, maybe is there shadow that lives in the part of me that doesn't want to mix business and pleasure and that has to be this overachiever? But then also, is there shadow that other people are holding around while I'm just doing what's required of me so I can live my life? And then I think this big question comes into it around, well, what are you contributing to the world? And that's a big question, right?
I think social media too is like, I don't know about you, but like I've seen people who run businesses, but they kind of, I guess, advertise it as, I see so many people online, they're like, work from anywhere in the world. Live your life on a holiday, blah, 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 blah. And it's like just them traveling the world, like, and then like they're on laptop in a few photos, like,
yeah, smiling, glowy hair, and like makeup perfect.
Yeah. So I think for me personally, I speak for myself, but I struggle to find that balance beam in between like that and like fully separating business and pleasure. Like I want to be kind of like here because up here it doesn't exist when you have kids, let's be real. But like here would be a really nice place to be. But I'm with you. I'm feeling like I'm still back here in this mindset of like, if you want to progress, you have to constantly be putting in the work and showing up, even when like the amount of times like, oh my goodness, you and I show up in our business. 80% of the time that we're showing up and showing face in our business, we're not getting paid for it.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality of it. Yeah. But it's also like, it makes me wonder as well with these people that are quiet quitting, like, will they ever have the skills and the tool belt to go out and run their own business if they're teaching themselves to have that mentality about work and showing up to work? Is that influencing their like the pathways in their brain, like the neuro pathways in their brain saying like, just do the bare minimum? Because I'm telling you now, if you're running a business, whether or not it's if you're a soulful entrepreneur or not, like there are times where you're like, for fuck's sake, I can't believe I'm showing up right now.
Yes, literally. Yes. You know what? Like, I think it influences a part of you that doesn't want to show up for other people. Because I see that pattern play out. Even when you want to be in the spiritual community and have a business, and, we see this competition over collaboration all the time. We see people just individually running their businesses, but not being a part of a community necessarily, being really just, I don't know how to explain this, but it just feels really there's a lot of isolated businesses out there.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that is connected somehow, which is interesting, right? But actually, I wanted to ask you, because with this whole paying for services to be done, right? I do this in my personal life. I have no problem doing it whatsoever. But when it comes to my business, I have a really, really hard time doing that, like delegating and hiring out services and things like that. Are you the same, or do you find it easy to do that?
No, it's really difficult for me because I'm a control freak. I think that's a big aspect of it for me. I'm a control freak, and I have this thing in my head, and it has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I have this thing in my head where I'm like, oh, I may as well just do it myself because I know that I'll be happy with the result. That's a Virgo thing, but yeah. I just like to be in full control. But also I struggle because like the help and the relief of pressure that would bring in, hiring out would be so impactful to like my own mental health and everything else as well.
Yeah, literally every area, right? I feel the same. I'm like, I don't know why I feel like I have such a hard time with that, but I think it does stem for me around control too, but it's more so control around money. And I think this is part of, when you get to that point in your business where you're like, shit, I have to take this really seriously now and stop kind of downplaying just how important and impactful this business could potentially be, And that's a really scary tipping point I feel like I'm at right now. It's like you either have to start taking this seriously or it's just going to be like it's never going to grow and it's never going to reach its full potential. And that's kind of sad to me.
I actually, side note, I feel like I've hit a wall the last few weeks as well with because I've realized that with this kind of business, like with an intuitive, like soul-based business, whether you're a reader, space holder, healer, whatever you want to label yourself as, but being in this space, and so I'll tell a story. I had
story time.
the most beautiful, beautiful woman reach out to me who I would trust with anything. Like she's beautiful. She's been in my community for a few years now. The other week, and she saw that I was really stressed out, really busy. I kept on posting in my business, on my business page, like in my story saying, I'm so sorry. I can't keep up with my messages. Please be patient. Anyway, she reached out to me and she said, look, I'm just putting this out there, but if you ever need help, please let me know because I am more than happy to reply to messages, reply to emails. Like, please let me know. I want to help. And automatically I lit up. I was like, the thought of having help I felt so excited. But then it was like, oh, all of these people are reaching out to me, like to kind of speak to me. And some of the time they're like sharing stories or like experiences and stuff like that. And I kind of felt like a little bit helpless because I was thinking to myself, well, I can't have someone else replying to those messages because people, when they're reaching out to us, they're reaching out to us for what we have to say about things and that sort of thing. So I kind of felt really defeated. Like, am I ever going to be able to get help like, or hand the reins over at some point with that? And then I'm like, oh, fuck, like, probably not.
Sad reality, right?
I'd love to hear your opinion on that. And like, I just wonder if that could ever work.
Yeah. I mean, a workaround would definitely be an exclusion that says, I'm not the only one who interacts with my private messages. If you need to privately message me, like handing out your phone number to specific clients, but you could have somebody who does do that for you. They just might not respond to personal messages, might filter it out and just kind of delegate those really personalized messages that are asking for your opinion or advice or perspective. So I think you could get help, but I really do understand what you're saying. And this is exactly what I've been feeling the past couple of weeks, especially with, my health. I'm like, it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure for one person. And what's harder about this is the fact that we both have these really incredible visions. And we have so much to give still. Like, this isn't enough for both of us. And I know that. Like, this is amazing and it lights me up, but I'm still hungry for more. I still want growth. I still know that there is potential to be tapped into.
Yeah.
And I know it can't be tapped into by just me. So there comes a point where you're like, do I need to rearrange my business to support that more? Or is there a way I can innovate that? And that's what I'm really struggling with too at the moment is like that innovative piece. And this comes with being a new age business in spirituality that's grounded in this. It's really tough to navigate, but I think maybe the more we open up to these conversations, hopefully new ideas will come through.
It is really tough. It is really tough. And especially because I know both of us have platforms outside of our Instagram and stuff like that we're also trying to run. You have your community, I have my community as well, and they're both growing and they're becoming more and more like, okay, I really feel like I need to put my energy into the people that are exchanging, and that's not coming from a place of greed, or it's more or less it's coming from a place of like prioritizing your time for those who are willing to exchange, and also our self-worth in like why we're showing up and our hunger for growth as well. So I know like since launching our own communities and doing stuff behind the scenes there and showing up there, it's like becoming increasingly difficult to still show up and balance that. I'm sitting here and I'm like, I feel like I don't have time for pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure who?
Like only today, someone sent me a message this morning in my inbox and they're like, oh, make sure you take time for you today. And I'm like, physically, mentally, business wisely, I don't have time for myself today, but I'm really looking forward to bedtime.
Yeah. Sleep time, does that count as time for myself?
Yes. So, and like for me, that's a little like red flag.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, I need to rearrange my time so it's not impacting that as much. But it's a struggle to like, it's such a limbo between that business and pleasure aspect of a business, because the more business that you take on, the less pleasure I find. And I'm really wanting to find a way to intermingle the both and find a bit more bliss in that.
I just don't think it's going to happen as a one-man band.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately. I think I can really see myself feeling more pleasure and maybe some more peace with having a really supportive team around me. But then also I'm like, what does that look like exactly? And am I still offering the same things in my business? Like, am I still the person? And this is where like I've been kind of battling with my ego a little bit. Am I still at the center of everything? Or is this bigger than me now? Have I tapped into something that's not about me and it's not about my perspective, but it's actually about so much more than that? And I think that's really what I'm contemplating lately. And that's really hard, to be honest, because I've built this business. I've literally poured, and you will know this too, poured so much time and energy into creating a reputation for myself, making my name be more understood as to who I really am. Like, I've battled with a lot of identity issues my life, and this business was a way for me to create an identity that I actually resonated with. And now I'm at that point of like, oh, I feel like this is bigger than me. I feel like I have to step out of that now. And that's like heartbreaking, but it's also exciting at the same time.
Yeah. I think that also involves a lot of like, there would be like a grieving process of that too, because you're jumping from being the only touch point to sharing that.
Yeah.
And I think for us in particular, a lot of like our business is not based on what we're offering. Our business is based on our connection with our community.
Yeah.
And the thought of maybe not being the first point of connection to my community, even just saying that, I feel automatically it's like fear.
Yes, right?
Automatically my senses are going off. I'm like, oh, that's uncomfortable.
Yes, uncomfortable is a great word.
Yeah, I just feel so uncomfortable even saying that, because I want to be approachable and I want to be in a position where I can connect with everyone who wants to reach out and connect with me. But the way that business grows, when you're putting in the work and you're growing it and you're finally seeing the results, it's a bit bittersweet, because you're like, well, I can't really be that person that is sitting down speaking to everyone all day.
Yeah.
It just can't happen, because then I would not have a business anymore, because I'm like, let's be honest, like I'm here to also make money.
Yeah.
Like I'm here to support my family and, reach my goals, and I want my freedom. And, unfortunately we live in a world where freedom comes with like when you have access to money, so it's a hard spot to be in. But I think any growth is uncomfortable to some degree. And as well, exactly what you said, I wish I could fast forward and just see what this dynamic looks like in an evolved version of like what I have right now, because it's going there, but I'm like, what is this going to look like?
Yeah, this limbo stage is like really uncertain, right? And I love what you said about that. It is about creating an evolved business. It really is. We're creating something that the world has maybe never seen before.
Yeah.
Ever. That's wild to think about. And it's going to come with a lot of challenges. And I think this feeds into a question that we actually had in our topic box for the podcast was, how do I learn to trust myself more, and how do I learn to trust my intuition? And the truth is, like, for me, it's just a choice. It has to be, because you don't know. Like with this business, you literally have no idea what's going to happen. You have to trust that this is all for a greater purpose. My desires are true, and I trust my desires. I trust that I'm being led down a path that's not only going to be better for me, but better for everybody that it touches. And I think that intuition plays into that, because when you are somebody in this position, you have to be connected to your intuition. You have to be open to your channel. And for me, it's just a choice. Like, what about you?
Well, for me, it is, I find that if I'm acting from a place of ego, like trying to protect myself, there's never any fear in that. It's comfortable, it's cozy, it's safe. And I know that when my intuition is stepping in, I almost feel tested. It's like I have this innate pull that I'm fighting with. It's like pulling on a rope, and I'm like, no. So I find that, when my intuition is coming through, when my wisdom is funneling through, and I'm like, whew, okay, that's a scary thing, but okay, let's do it. It's not always comfortable, but I know straight away that is something that the universe is pushing me towards. If I'm acting from a place of ego, which isn't a bad thing, obviously, I find that people just misinterpret ego as like this evil thing. It's not. It's actually one of our most loving human responses that we have, because our ego loves us so much that it tries to keep us safe. And when I'm acting from there, I feel safe. I feel like, this is cozy. This is nice and warm. I am still in my shell, and it's great. And I'm making a decision, and yep, that's the right decision. And then my intuition is like, no, really, you should keep thinking about it in this context. And it's just that fight between the two. So for me, like, that is one of the biggest differences between the two.
And I want to add on to that too, because I think ego is about instant gratification, So like, I hope you don't mind me sharing, but like your internal battle about scheduling your time properly is like, you've had this message come through so many times around like, I need to schedule my time better. And you always tell me that. And then you didn't do it and double booked yourself, and you're like, God damn it. Like, I didn't put in the effort, and now I'm in the same fucking position. It's like that happens to me all the time. When I get this message, I'm like, it comes in pretty clearly, and it feels like that pull. And my ego is like, no, we'll just chill here. And then my intuition later is like, I told you so. Like, I literally told you this was going to happen.
It's always the way. It is always the way, and it always happens. And it's afterwards, you can see it clearly through fresh eyes, and you know what decision you've made. Straight away afterwards. You're like, yep, okay, I was trying to stay safe.
Yes.
But it's just learning how to read that before it happens, and being able to act from that place of intuition. And we're both sitting here and we're like, this is scary. Business is growing, and we need to evolve with that. And intuition for us right now is like, okay, it's time to make some decisions and boundaries about how much we're showing up, because we deserve to have all of the pleasure in the world when it comes to this, because it's when that disappears entirely. And it will continue to do so if you don't implement, help and support and allow your business to evolve and grow. If we don't do that, then bliss and joy just dwindles. And all of a sudden you get down the track and you're like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Because joy is everything. We're here to feel joy. We're here to just revel in that. You know, it's not one of the highest frequency emotions for nothing. We're here to feel and cultivate that. We're not here to be sad girls.
No, you're so right. And it's hard because, again, like instant gratification is something that we really value, especially in today's day and age. So, and that doesn't come very easily, like connecting into joy. You kind of have to have a plan in place in terms of having enough time to actually tune into what makes you happy. And yeah, it's all very interesting. I'm really curious to see like what other people are kind of getting from this conversation, and maybe if they can see anything in their own lives coming up just around maybe where you are holding back from allowing yourself to tune into something more for safety or for comfort. I think this is a really important conversation.
Yeah, it is. I would love for people to check in and just like let us know where they're at, and if this kind of has lit up something within them that maybe, you know, you do need to balance that out a little bit more and provoke a little bit more pleasure into what you're doing and the business that you're running, because it's why we're here. And when we're evoking joy and pleasure in our business, then like it radiates out and other people feel that in our work too. So it allows our business to grow, you know, it's important. So
and it's a lucky problem we have, right? It's a good problem to have, that our business is growing to the point where we're like, oh, to evolve and grow too. I think it's a really awesome place to be in. So as much as it is crazy uncertain and scary, I'm really grateful that we are having this problem.
Yeah, so am I. So am I.
Wow, what a beautiful note to finish on. Thank you guys for coming and joining us for another week. We will be back next week, hopefully. I know we're going to take a little bit of a break over Christmas, so stay tuned. I think we're going to take a couple of weeks off to really just plan and prep for the new year. So if you guys have anything that you'd love to see in the new year, we want to maybe invite you into the planning. Maybe we'll be a little bit more active on Instagram, like get your ideas. It'd be really fun to kind of curate a whole year of just what wants to come through from both us and you guys. So you can find us on podcast or YouTube, Apple, Spotify. We're literally on every podcast place. So yeah, wherever you listen to your podcast. But we'll see you next week.
See you next week.